Digital transformation and digitalisation are major business priorities for many companies today. And with the accelerating risk of ransomware attacks due to remote working, businesses need to ensure their data is secure in every environment, both across the cloud and on premises. The COVID-19 pandemic has put a particular strain on businesses' IT infrastructure. With more people working remotely, this puts their data and their systems at a higher risk. In fact, the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre says it handled more than 3 times as many ransomware incidents in 2020 than in the previous year, highlighting the need for data protection. As a result, software as a service, otherwise known as SaaS, and backup solutions have become incredibly popular due to the simplicity and the flexibility that they offer. Well, joining me now in the studio is Damon Robertson, the CEO of COOLSPIRiT, and Jonathan Boll, VP and General Manager of Commvault. Thanks to both of you for coming on the programme.
Thanks, Selena.
Damon, if I could just get you to just tell us a bit about yourself and your organisation.
Yeah, certainly, Selena. So thanks ever so much for inviting us down. First time in London for 14 months.
I know, exciting.
Good buzz.
Yeah, it's a good find.
Definitely. So COOLSPIRiT, somebody once said to me, show me an overnight success and I'll show you 20 years hard work. And I think I've got the grey hairs to prove that. So COOLSPIRiT, 20 years ago, you could only back up to tape. That was where we were.
Those were the days.
Can you remember that, Jonathan?
He's too young.
Just.
I can remember open reel tape, which was way before your time. So you could only back up to tape, so we were very limited. You backed up to tape, you removed it into a data safe or into a vault of some sort. Whoa, 20 years later, you can imagine what's happened. We've gone through massive paradigm shifts, haven't we, in technology. So we went backing up to disk, which was supposed to be faster. Then there was too much data, so you couldn't back up to disk. So somebody came up with deduplication, which meant that we could get more onto the disk. Then that filled up. Then you went disk to tape and archive. And then the software vendors, such as Jonathan's company, Commvault, got a hold and thought data's more important than this. It's not just backup, it's a data management suite, and we can do things with data. And that's where we are today. So COOLSPIRiT, we listen to our prospect or customer, we design a solution, we implement that solution, and then we support and roadmap that solution for them. So a massive journey over 20 years,
Yes,
Selena.
I can imagine. Jonathan, what about Commvault? Just tell us a bit about the organisation.
Well, Commvault, in our raison d'etre, is helping organisations do amazing things with their data. So it's really about how we can bring our knowledge and expertise to help our customers address their toughest data management challenges. Now, we've been in business for 25 years. We've got a huge amount of experience that we can bring to bear on our customers and our partners in helping organizations secure and manage and protect their data. And it's really about now how we can enable organizations to exploit that data, get that data in the hands of the data innovators who are responsible for the modernization and the transformation of organizations today. So whether organizations are running services on their own premises, or whether, as many organizations are doing today, moving to the cloud, Commvault's continuing to innovate, bring out new products and services that ensure we're at the forefront, the gold standard of data management and data protection solutions. Now, the hypothesis is a lot of organizations today, they are absolutely swimming in data, but still struggling for insight. And the core of that is ensuring that your data, the fundamentals, that incredible valuable asset, is secure and protected and available to organizations today.
And Damon, just tell us, why is data such an important and valuable asset for businesses wanting to stay ahead of their competitors and maintain a competitive advantage?
Yeah, okay. So I would like to answer that, Selena, is in a data protection policy. So the digitisation of the world over the last 10 years has been fantastic. I myself now have become digitised out of the sort of dinosaur writing on a paper age. But it's so important on a digital that myself and Jonathan's organisations, we protect the data, we're the guardians of the data. That is so valuable because it can cost thousands, millions of pounds to make that data, make that digitisation. If you lose it, you've got to start again or couldn't start again. So, for example, works of art are now being digitised. So Jonathan and myself, we protect that data and make sure that it's going to be there by moving it into the 3-2-1 rule, which is an old and tried tested rule that means it moves the data off into 3 different mediums, 3 different formats, and it will be there in the future for our future generations.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on that point, Jonathan, I mean, probably one of the most valuable assets a business can have is data.
Incredibly so. I mean, how many metaphors do we use today to describe data? I've heard data is the new gold.
Yes.
Data is the new currency. Data is the new oil.
You can understand why.
There's a reason for that. And, you know, I've heard people describe, you know, the digital economy is now built upon data. So, as Damon said, it's so important as data continues to accelerate and to accelerate and to grow. This is an incredibly valuable asset that organizations have got to be able to use in order to modernize and transform their business in order to compete in today's, you know, digital economy. And we're all familiar with the organizations who perhaps have not fared quite as well as others. And you know, when I look at organizations today, the ones that seem to be really thriving are the ones who recognize that they know just enough to know that there's a huge amount that they don't know. And they're trying to use their data to derive those insights that help them create the new business models, engage with customers in new and meaningful ways, creating new solutions and services that surprise and delight.
So what about those businesses then that perhaps aren't modernising or that want to modernise but aren't using and exploiting this valuable asset, their data?
Well, my view on that is there was, I'm not sure how true this is, but there's this famous statement if you go online, and it says since 2000, something like 52% of the companies in the Fortune 500 no longer exist. Now, I'm not sure whether it's quite 52%, whether it's 10%, 15%. I think the point is we've seen a huge amount of disruption. It's almost inconceivable to me now, you know, looking back at Nokia, that they're not in existence in the way that they were before. And there's a whole bunch of other names that people use all of the time. And those organizations have been disrupted because of organizations, challenger organizations who've come along and they're really using data at the heart of their business to build these new services. Now, we talk about data all the time as being incredibly important. And actually, that is the foundation. But I would suggest that what's really important is actually the insights that are hidden inside the data. It's the insights that people are looking to monetize. It's those insights that organizations want to understand in order to continue to transform and modernize their business to keep pace so they're not going to be disrupted or challenged.
I mean, you talk about disruption, but I mean, COVID obviously has disrupted a lot. The related increasing ransomware attacks that we talked about, I mean, staggering statistics there about the increase in ransomware attacks. Do you think, Damon, that that has proved one of the big misconceptions that data is automatically protected in the cloud? Because it isn't, is it?
No.
What are the implications of this?
It definitely isn't. So if I could start with the history, maybe just take it back 10 years. We speak to IT directors, CTOs, CEOs, and 10 years ago it was important to back up. Then came along things like Sarbanes-Oxley, we've had GDPR, and then the pandemic has raised the profile of data yet again of how important it is because of people working from home, working in different locations, the data's sprawled all over. But the one thing that has really changed is ransomware. So we've been talking to people 3 years ago and trying to get them to get excited about data protection. How valuable are your assets? Where are they? What is your data protection policy? And it's always on the back burner, and it's an important job, but it's never actually done. Now, what ransomware's done is took that straight up, and everybody's having a board meeting now. What do we do about ransomware? And that's brought data protection right to the front. And myself and Jonathan have seen numerous incidents where people have, they would take a year to make a decision before, they're now making 2 to 3 weeks to make a decision because ransomware is so prevalent and it's so strong and people are deciding to act.
Yeah, are you seeing that with Commvault as well?
Very much so. When I speak to customers today, it's no longer a case of if they get attacked. It's when they get attacked, and the question they ask is, how quickly can we recover? Because, you know, you mentioned COVID, and we were talking about it before we came on air. A lot of us are sat at home in a kitchen, on a tablet, on an iPad. We've got all these devices now outside of offices. So people are now working, collaborating, and sharing data and files in a way that was unusual 12 months ago. So being able to protect that data now, being able to protect those endpoints, which I think are much more open to some of these attacks, is going to be increasingly important. And you hear the statistics. The last one I heard was there's a ransomware attack every 11 seconds now. So back to my previous point at the start, I think organizations have almost reconcile to the fact it is going to happen. So how do we put protection in place to make sure that when it does happen, we can recover very quickly and keep business up and running?
If I can just reply to you there, Jonathan. Selina, you were talking about the National Cyber Security. They've done an absolutely brilliant white paper that anybody can find on Google. And myself and Jonathan have read this in detail, obviously. It's been out for about 12, 18 months, but what the government have done is set out guidelines to help prevent ransomware. It goes back to that 321 policy I was talking about, and it puts, when you put your data into one of the 3 chambers or 3 vaults, that is the minimum you should be doing, you make it immutable. So the hackers, ransomware, whatever you want to call them, can't get at that data. So at least if you have a ransomware attack, you can get back to some data that's not been infected.
Okay.
So the National Cyber Security have done a great job in promoting that.
Okay, and anyone can access that?
No, well, it's public sector,
Okay.
and the NHS for England have got a budget, and if any council, university or healthcare go, they can claim some of the budget.
Okay.
And can start acting to make them immutable data and follow the guidelines of the National Cyber Security.
Okay. Yep.
So just to pick up on Damon's point there, I think the ransomware topic is very hot at the moment, and we're seeing some startling statistics. I think there's a ransomware attack every 11 seconds.
This is correct, yeah.
And I was reading something just recently that small, mid-sized businesses are very much being targeted, and something like 80% of those businesses that are targeted within 6 months are going out of business, which is really, really, really scary. And the head, or the former head, I think, of the National Cyber Security Centre wrote an article just recently where he was talking about perhaps one of the challenges is how the amount of companies who are paying ransom. And actually he was suggesting maybe that should become a crime and people should not be allowed to pay these ransoms. And actually prevention is better than cure. So perhaps people should be spending their money ensuring that they're protected from these cyber threats, actually, rather than either claiming on the insurance or actually paying these, because actually no one has an obligation to say whether they've paid or whether they've not. And perhaps that in itself, Damon, is
Yeah.
accelerating the ransomware attacks.
I think you're exactly right. The difficulty is the difference between commercial and public sector. With public sector, I think the government could put a law in saying, please don't pay these people, because it's easy to do. With commercial, it will be quite difficult. If your organisation had 3 days to pay the ransom, or it was going out of business because you were locked out of your system, what would you do?
Yeah.
It's a very difficult, and if then it was a crime to actually pay them, it'd make it very difficult. The part I heard as well, that the police followed up on that report, liken it to car stereos. If you remember, car stereos were separate in the car 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and people used to go around, smash the window, steal the car stereo. The police couldn't stop it, so they did exactly what the National Cyber Security guys are advising, is they then prosecuted the people who bought the car stereos, and it did stop it. So I think there's definitely legs in it, but I think it needs, because of that emotional value, it is, COOLSPIRiT is my company. If I got 3 days, do I pay the ransom, or is it illegal to pay the ransom? I think it'd be very difficult. Yeah. So I agree completely with what you're saying and what he's saying, but it needs some work.
But I guess the key point here is, prevention is better than cure. Getting your house in order, as he was suggesting, making sure you've got the right processes and technologies in place to ensure you're protected against attacks.
But on a business side or a public sector side, I read that 94% of ransomware attacks could be prevented if you did the 321 rule, had immutable storage, and had a proper data protection policy. And you'd practiced. If you'd actually practiced, if somebody, you got one of your staff or even paid a company to pen test or penetration test your company, what happens if I have a ransomware attack? Would I survive? And I think that along with maybe the government acting as well, could be 2 great things to stop the ransomware.
Good incentive.
It's terrible. It is really bad.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess then that just proves that misconception that, data isn't always automatically protected in the cloud, given the shared responsibility.
It certainly
model.
isn't. That shared responsibility is hidden in the terms and conditions, and people think, wow, a huge organisation, Microsoft, Salesforce, etc., the other big SaaS providers, that their protection must be second to none. They're just as exposed. So if they have downtime or a data loss, it's a shared responsibility. So what that means is you've lost that data or you've lost that downtime. So you must put a product in to protect that SaaS-based product. Now, at the moment, during the pandemic, I'm sure we're one reseller of many that you've got, Jonathan, but we're finding that people are knee-jerking during this pandemic and they're buying a point solution to protect Office 365, a point solution to buy a Salesforce. What we'd prefer them to do is buy a complete system, such as the ones that myself and Jonathan provide, that will look after that, it'll look after past, present and future data requirements. So that would be easier than buying a point. But at the moment, people's budgets are tight and they're wanting to protect the SaaS-based products that you're referring to, Selena.
Sure. But I mean, data sprawl and increased attack surface, is that inhibiting some organisations from modernising and protecting their data, which is in turn, I guess, stopping them from this sort of competitive advantage?
I think data sprawl is one of the biggest challenges organisations have today, especially large organisations, because invariably they've grown at a project by project basis, different departments buying their own solutions, their own applications. And what happens is that just begins to sprawl and it just grows and it becomes everywhere. That becomes really, really difficult to manage and just operate and keep on top of. But when we talked about digital transformation earlier on, you know, the organizations who are thriving, you know, if you are still operating at a silo level, at a departmental level, you are as far away from digital transformation
as
it's possible to be, right? You're as far away as it's possible to be. So it's not even just about the management. It's only when you start to get a good view of your environment, you understand your data, where it is, you know, and being able to, you know, put a catalog around your data, can you only then really start to exploit that data. So when we talk a lot about, you know, the value of data, organizations using these data sets to look for trends and patterns that helps them to become informed. You know, the basis of that is just knowing where your data is, knowing that your data is secure. And actually there's a rule of thought that the value of an organization today could be intrinsically linked to actually how it protects one of its most important assets, which is its data, and it looks after its data in order that they can continue to compete in the future. And just back to a point that Damon was making just before about cloud. We've seen this in the last 12 months. Back to everyone's working from a kitchen table with a laptop and, you know, children around and all the chaos in a family. People are absolutely looking for some tactical solutions. And there's this notion, and I'm amazed today how many organizations we speak to who just assume that they put it into the cloud, so all is well. And you remind them, this is your data, it is your responsibility. And when you start looking at the shared model, you know, it's very, very clear. You are responsible for your data. You are responsible for your accounts. And that's why organizations have to implement exactly what Damon was saying before to make sure that they've got that resilience.
Yeah, definitely. And the easy way of putting that, Selena, imagine you're an IT manager. Tomorrow, you're going to be an IT manager. 15 years ago, you had 2-3 data centers. Your data was in a central source. Everybody came in for that data and worked outwards at a normal desktop environment. Imagine now that you've still got the 3 data centers, you've got cloud with SaaS-based running applications on, you've then got edge that's running some of your applications as well, and then you've got endpoints, and then Harry in the AutoCAD department decides to buy yet another product, and that needs protecting. It's sort of suddenly you're managing 6, 7, 8, 10 environments, etc. So it's got very, very confusing for IT managers. There's a lot to do. So if we can centralise that into one central data protection policy, it makes sense. And then also follow that 3-2-1 rule and make sure that everything, wherever your data resides, whether it is SaaS in Office 365, whether it's in Salesforce, whether it's in your data centre, on your financial systems, SaaS product for HR, whatever it is, because HR can be very sensitive as well, payrolls can be in there, etc. It's all in one central source, backed up, 3 copies minimum in an Vault type environment that's immutable. If the IT managers can get a grip on that, then going back to what Jonathan said, it's so much easier to manage than 16 to 17 products trying to do the same job.
Sure. So how's COOLSPIRiT then and Commvault supporting partners and customers to protect and grow their businesses in the past 12 months?
Do you want to go first, Jonathan?
I think it's multifaceted. I think the first thing is, we recognise that this is a hot topic. We're seeing all the data and statistics, and I think what we want to do is, we know organisations have got these tough data management challenges, and in short, we want to help them address those. And there's a number of ways we can do that, but the most important thing is really understanding the particular challenge that they've had. Cloud adoption, it's happening at a rate of knots now. Commvault has built tremendous capability and partnerships to help organizations, move to the cloud. If people want to operate software as a service, that's fantastic. And we bought capabilities and built capabilities with our partners like Microsoft that enable organizations today to very quickly and accelerate and move to the cloud. Again, to make sure that this asset, their data, is protected and secured.
Yeah, right. And what we're doing as COOLSPIRiT with Jonathan's product, which is Commvault, so we're offering a service to our customers and to people who aren't our customers. We can offer a ransomware check, so we can go in and do that penetration test. We would just ask for their data protection policy, what's their data backup policy at the moment, how are you managing things, and do a general health check. So we go in and look at that for our customers and prospects. But what we did during the pandemic, which was really good, one of Jonathan's customers that we share, so a Commvault customer that COOLSPIRiT share, they were really struggling. It was Yorkshire Ambulance Service. They were really struggling. We'd hit the pandemic. Doctors were wanting laptops, nurses were having IT issues, and they were doing the general day-to-day backups, etc. So what we said to them, we went in and said, look, this was again, we were talking earlier, Selena, about the predictions of 2020. I predicted that the pandemic would be over by September. So we offered to them a free managed service for backup up to September. Now we're still doing that 14 months later, but hey, so we're so glad we can help the NHS. So we went in, and what that allowed that to do, it allowed the IT staff to be deployed elsewhere. They were able to firefight. They'd go out, they'd fix the doctor's laptop, rather than doing the sort of day-to-day things that somebody else could do. So we called that our Brewdog moment, because we were down to scaling staff at work, and on the TV, the CEO of Brewdog came up, and he said, oh, we've lost 80% of our beer consumption. What we're going to make is hand sanitizer, and we're going to offer that free to any healthcare. And after thinking, what can we do? And I thought, well, we offer data protection, so we'll offer that free to the NHS. And 3 people took that up locally. Brilliant. We're still doing all 3 actually.
That's brilliant.
So, yeah.
That's brilliant. I think it's incumbent on organisations like Commvault and organisations like COOLSPIRiT. We are data experts. We've been in this business for 25 years, lots of experience and pedigree. COOLSPIRiT not quite as long, but pretty similar. It's our job to go and speak to these organisations today to help educate them on what's really happening, to kind of guide them through this process as these data experts, because you don't know what you don't know. And we're very fortunate that day in and day out, we're working with organisations, helping them fix these problems, and their learnings and their experiences that we can bring to bear with other organisations. They can learn from that best practice. So it's multifaceted. We've got to help and educate. We've also got to understand what their challenges are. And that's where it becomes that perfect storm. Our experience and knowledge combined with the exam question, the challenge that's being set to us, that's a perfect scenario, and it's valuable then for the organisations that we're working with. Because you've got to protect the data, but equally organisations are swimming in data but struggling for insight. And I think that is the perfect outcome.
Damon, what do you personally think of digital transformation?
Well, Selena, it's really interesting. If you'd asked me that 18 months ago, because of the industry I'm in, I'd have thought it's fantastic, but we need to protect it, obviously. But I've got a sort of personal story with it. Just before the pandemic, I was using pad and pen for all my meeting notes. If it needed to be emailed out, then I'd transfer that into Outlook or whatever. So I was a bit of a dinosaur. Come the pandemic, I was determined to get myself into the digital age. So I use an iPad, I use a laptop, and I use a desktop. And the desktop's particularly good when you're on Teams, because I can use OneNote and take notes at the same time, but I'm still looking at the person. So it's particularly good. But I did 21 days where I kept reaching for my pad, and I went, no, get digital, get digital. and I'm actually there now. I have formed the habit and I do everything digitally, and I've really reaped the rewards. I can move data around. I can send an email to you, Jonathan, after our meeting straight away without having to redo it, etc. So I'm really pleased with it. Now, what it's done for me in my work life then, it's even highlighted it further about how much I need to protect that. So if you ask me how much the digital age is great, but it's really enhanced how much I need to protect it now. So I can understand an IT manager's point of view even more because I see it from a personal view.
Which actually highlights very nicely the challenge that a lot of organizations have with data growth. You know, you are embracing it, you are creating data. And I read a statistic recently, said in the next 3 years, we will generate more data than we have in the previous 30. And there's a prediction by 2025, there's going to be 200, I think, yettabytes or yottabytes. I get confused between the different ones these days. But that then is going to further challenge organizations to manage and harness all of that data. And more importantly, ensure that people can derive insight from that. And it becomes a valuable, useful asset.
Definitely. That leads us back into our conversation earlier, Selena, about the point solutions for SaaS-based products. If data is going to increase in the next 3 years at the rate it was in the last 30, then surely we want a central managed system for that,
Exactly right.
rather than point solutions. Definitely. Yeah.
So much for businesses to take away. Thanks so much for joining us on the programme. It's really great to get your insight. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Selena.
Thank you.
Thank you.